What's your experiences like as somebody who is queer in the UK?
I think generally, I guess on a worldwide scale, I appreciate that it's probably better than a lot of places, and I can definitely see that. I feel overall, like obviously the legal system generally supports us, but I think people underestimate the level of prejudice that does still exist.
Yes, like you said, in other places it's not as good as it is here. Because if I compare it to where I'm from in Bucharest in Romania, I would say it's definitely better in the UK, but there's still room for improvement, I would say.
What challenges have you experienced in Bucharest that you haven't experienced here in the UK?
Bucharest, Romania is not as diverse as it is here, and most of the population is very religious. So that plays a big part in the level of acceptance of people in society, of any types of people who are different, who are not the norm. So I would say that's probably the biggest challenge that I faced in there. Where I feel like in the UK, especially in London, because it's so diverse, people are more open to being accepting. And
you talked about prejudice. What kind of experiences have you had around prejudice in the UK?
Yeah, so it's not so much these days. I mean, you still do get like direct prejudice, like people will say things, especially if you're like showing public displays of affection and stuff. But I think it's more like you can sense when someone's uncomfortable around you, and in the workplace or in like a setting where maybe different demographics don't necessarily mix as much, you can sense that someone's uncomfortable with you and maybe has a bad impression of you, or maybe in situations where you're trying to get a job or something like that. So it's less direct, I think, but it's all sort of undercurrent. You know what I mean?
What's your overall experience been like being a queer person in the UK?
I think in London in general, it's been great, very accepting, gives you space to find out who you are. I think there are certain places where it's less understood. There are certain people who are closed-minded, but I think you come across that anywhere you go. There's obviously always a generational divide, but I've found that most people, if you give them the chance, they are open and they're willing to learn and understand. So I'd say it's more accepting than I thought, and I think that it's among lots of my friends, that's a shared feeling of actually you can be quite surprised by the people who you encounter and what they're willing to accept. So I think overall, I don't feel the need to change who I am or to hide who I am. I feel I can be who I am.
And is that more experience you found that's in London, or do you think if you were in other places in the UK, it would be just the same as well in terms of being able to be yourself?
It's a really interesting question. I think anyone, the way you're brought up, things that you see on the media, it has such an influence on how you see the world. So I think for a very long time, I saw the world as a place that accepts hetero people, and actually I've almost had to break down some of my misconceptions, that you might have some misconceptions and assume that somewhere isn't going to be accepting, and then actually they are. So I think you really have to be open-minded, and I think you are more often than not surprised that a place or a person or it is actually accepting of who you are. I am from an arts background, and I think that has also really helped, because lots of people from an arts background will have an understanding of queerness in some sense. So most people you come across in that field will just automatically be understanding and accepting, and that helps. But I don't think I've often been surprised in a way that I've gone somewhere that I thought was going to be accepting and it isn't. So I do think that the UK, it feels like I feel safe, and that's important.
Do you feel the UK is welcoming for people who are queer?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you see queerness on the telly, you see it out and about, you see lots of communities, like shout out to Dykes Who Hike.
What is it?
It's a lesbian hiking group in London. So some people that I know set it up at the beginning of this year, and it's grown a massive following online, and it's just a chance for dykes, essentially lesbians, to come together and do something not relating to alcohol. Like there's lots of club nights and such, but a chance for us to come together and get out of London, go for a walk, get to know the community. So finding people and places to go, there's so much around that you wouldn't know, but you can find quite easily when you're looking for it. And I think that sort of openness and availability is really important. I've forgotten what your question was.
That was like, do you feel the UK is welcoming to queer people? You said yes. And you've given examples.
Yeah.
Very, very, very eloquently and well described. So yeah.
I mean, we have Drag Race UK. It's not something that's hidden. It's legal. I mean, it took a long time for it to be legal, but if I want to get married, I can, and that's a really big thing. Like certain laws and such, when you see an equality for things like marriage, it does make you feel accepted. But then there are things like, it feels like there's less rights. There's an attack on the trans community right now, which I'm not trans, but as part of the queer community, I feel a responsibility to make sure everyone in my community is cared for and feels important. So there is a level of, I'm not sure I would feel safe as a trans person in the UK. So there are countries that do it better for sure, but also my existence isn't illegal. So it's levels, I guess.
Do you think attitudes to queer people differs from region to region in the UK, and if so, how?
I don't think I can speak on that properly because I've only come to terms with my queerness in the last few years, which the majority of I've spent in London, and I'm from Oxford, which isn't very far away, which again I feel very safe in. So I can't speak on that one, I don't think. But I don't think there's anywhere that I would feel unsafe going within the UK, which does speak volumes, I think.
How inclusive have you found workplaces or educational institutions to be?
Well, I have a background in the arts, so I don't think I've ever been anywhere that hasn't felt inclusive or uplifting. Where I work, I'm part of the LGBTQIA+ affinity group, so we work on making sure that our community feel heard, feel understood, have a space in the workplace. And yeah, in my university life, I've always been part of since coming out, so my master's, I was part of the LGBTQIA+ society, so I've found it very accepting. But that is, I think the arts in general is a very accepting place, so I'm not sure that would necessarily be everyone's experience.
Yeah, the arts is very unique in that nature, isn't it? It's a very kind of free community that embraces creativity and differences, and I think a lot of industries aren't like that. Like, say,
it's not just embracing, I think they celebrate it, yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Korede and I'm embarking on an exciting challenge going from 3,000 subscribers to 10,000 subscribers in 1 month. I need your help to achieve this. I am a YouTuber, I make great exciting videos, traveling, asking people about hot topics. You can check out my videos, subscribe, follow, share and like. Let's hit this target of 10,000 subscribers in 1 month. Together we can do this. Let the internet unite and let's make this happen.